So hello, welcome to Stephen's Four Wheels, and today I've got to decide which one of these cars I decide to sell and which one I decide to keep. So before we get into this video, just a very quick one from me. I'm currently trying to get towards 1,000 subscribers. That is my big ambition for 2025, to get towards 1,000 subscribers. Now, when I get to 1,000, I start getting paid a little bit of revenue from YouTube. It is obviously varied, that revenue, depending on how many views you get, and then the views are split between shorts and also longer videos as well. So it's a little more complicated, but the longer the short of it is, I start getting a little bit of money from YouTube. You guys can also show your support by subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate every single person that has subscribed, because if it wasn't for you guys, there wouldn't be a channel. If none of you were liking the video, none of you subscribed to the channel, I'd have no way of knowing that you guys actually enjoyed the video. So it's this channel is much about me as it is about you guys, because without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this channel. I wouldn't see that anybody was actually watching this. So please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and if you have already, a big thank you for your ongoing support. So anyway, let's get into the video for today. So you may remember recently that I used to own an Alfa Romeo Brera, which I was selling. A friend of mine was selling this car, and he approached me and said, would you consider doing a swap? He wanted something that was sportier. I wasn't that bothered about selling or swapping, as long as I got my money one way or another. So if I do sell this car, I'll get your money back from the sale of this car instead of selling the Alfa, if that makes sense. So both cars were about the same sort of value, so I'm not necessarily going to lose any money on this car. In fact, we'll come on to this in a little bit, but this car, being in the countryside, is probably a little more saleable. Where I live in the countryside, probably will sell a little bit quicker. So let's start off by looking at the pros of the Honda. Now, of course, this Honda is a 4x4. It's got four-wheel drive on it. This will be a really big bonus for this car, because I do live in the countryside. We do have semi-regular flooding. We do, obviously, in the winter, have snow and ice, and this car, particularly during the winter, would be absolutely perfect for that. It would be the ultimate sort of winter car for around here. I always say, in looking at the type of cars around here, every other car is either a 4x4 or a crossover or something along those sort of lines. The other thing that I do like about this car is the colour. Now, I'm not the biggest white fan, to be honest. And also, being a daily, this just constantly needs cleaning every day. I watched this the other day. It hasn't even been out really that much. There's a little bit of driving it, and it's already looking like it needs a bit of a clean, because there's little bits over the bonnet. Whereas this I cleaned last week, there's a few bits on there, but it hides the dirt a lot better. So I do like that colour. I should mention that I don't really like white cars, but the reason I bought this car, because it had 14,500 miles over 9 years. That's all it had done from new. So that's the reason why I sort of compromised on that. But yes, I do quite like the colour of this Honda a little bit better. Now, the other big advantage of this particular Honda is that it's an absolutely fantastic service history. It has been serviced every single year from 2008. So this is a 2007 car. Didn't need a service 2008, and from 2008 onwards, it's had a service every single year, which is fantastic. You don't find many cars like that. Now, when I bought the B-Class, I think it only had about 4 services over the 9 years, purely because it hadn't had the mileage. They sort of do what I do on my other cars, on the SLK and the SR. They don't service every single year due to mileage, but this car has had service done every single year, regardless of mileage, to be honest. So some years it's done less, some years it's done more, and it's always had a service regardless of the mileage. So that's another big positive to the Honda. So let's look at some of the positives for the B-Class. Now, the B-Class itself is a 62 plate. I think it was in September. And the Honda, I can't remember when it was registered on, but I know it was sort of between March to August 2007. So it is an older car. It's probably nearly 5.5 years older. And don't forget, this is a 2007 car. And this doesn't look like a near 20-year-old car. I mean, it is getting on for 20 years old soon. A couple of years time will be 20. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that much to me, because having worked at car dealers, you can get a new car that has issues. So age isn't necessarily that big of a deal, long as the car has actually been looked after. But obviously, the older the car, potentially the more issues you could have, potentially the more things that could be wearing out. So let's talk about boring stuff. Let's talk about running costs. Now, for me at the moment, I want a day to cost me as little as possible to run. That's really where the B-Class does excel. This car is £35 a year to tax. Obviously it is newer, so it does benefit from having a slightly more eco-friendly engine, slightly more green engine. The Honda on the other hand is £315 tax, so that's getting on for 10 times the amount to actually tax this car in a year. So a little bit of a difference there. If we look at fuel economy as well, again the B-Class really does shine there, again having that slightly newer engine. I did a round trip last week, 128 miles, and I got 64.2 miles per gallon. That was a bit of mixture driving, some motorway driving, some A road driving, a little bit of B road driving. And yeah, I was really impressed with that for a nice round trip. Now, the Honda, on the other hand, to be fair to this car, for the age of it, it still does very good MPG. The trip on this car has done just over 800 miles, and in over 800 miles, this car's done about 45.1 miles per gallon. So very impressive, I must admit, still for this age of car. But again, just the B-Class does it a little bit better, and that is quite a significant gap. I mean, it's like nearly 20 mpg, so it is a little bit of a gap. Coupled together with the cheaper tax, again, it's going to cost me more to run the Honda than it is for the B-Class. Now, we also take into account that I've had the B-Class for nearly 4 years. With 4 years in September since I bought this car, and I have to admit, it's given me 4 years of quite reliable service. I've had a few little bits go along the way. I've had things like tyres go, which I can't really blame the car for. I've had a few little sensors go, a couple of wheel sensors, sensor in the engine, which need replacing. Nothing that's cost me an absolute fortune. It's the odd couple of £100 here and there. But really, I've done 40,000 miles in this car in that time, and I can't really complain. I expect cars to have a little bit of an issue, and I always say with Mercs, my best buying advice for cars, certainly this era anyway, this generation, is that generally the gearboxes, the engines, drivetrain will be absolutely fine. You'll never really have any issue as long as you look after them and service them regularly. The thing that always lets these cars down are the sensors, and I usually say I have a yearly issue with a sensor, and that's been right. I've had about 3 issues with sensors so far, so yeah, about once a year I will get an issue with this. Now, the Honda, obviously I don't know much about this car. However, my friend who owned this before I did the swap with had this car, I think, since I've known him. I've known him for nearly a couple of years, and I don't think he's ever had any issues with this car, actually. So the usual sort of Japanese reliability where everything is sorted, drivetrain, electricals, it's been absolutely fine. He's never had to actually take to a garage to get it repaired, or there's no failure in sensor. So again, interesting. I know the B-Class quite well, but then again, also do know this via my friend. So another factor, I want the Daily to be as easy to drive as possible. Now, obviously, I'm quite used to driving the B-Class. I've done nearly 40,000 miles in this car since I bought it. And it's an auto as well, and I know the size and dimension of it and all that, and I've got sort of used to it. And I do find the B-Class an extremely easy car to drive, and the only thing that lets the CR-V down is the manual gearbox. I'm not against manual gearboxes at all, but I think this car would be a little bit easier to drive as an auto. That's the only thing that lets it down. I just find it, particularly if you're driving in traffic, or like if I go into Worcester city centre, you can do lots of stop start, and generally having to pump the clutch, stir the gearbox. This car is just easier to drive and easier to live with, in my opinion, for a daily. So finally, I've had a bit of time to drive the Honda. I swapped it over in Bristol with the Alfa, so I had probably a good 60-70 mile to drive this car back up to Worcestershire. And obviously it's just motorway driving, you still get a feel for a car, and I have to admit the Honda felt really nice to drive. I can't really criticise anything about the way the car drives. Really nice car to drive. You can see it's a really good example of a Honda CR-V. But as compared to the B-Class, the B-Class just pips it a little bit, and here's why. The B-Class just has that little bit of a nicer feeling. Now, let's go back 30 seconds. I said that there's nothing wrong with the CR-V. Absolutely is nothing wrong with this car. It drives really nicely, but for some reason I just feel a little bit more at home. I just feel that the B-Class drives just feels that little bit nicer to drive. I can't really explain quite why, whether it's because I've owned this car and I'm used to it, I know how it performs, and again, this car is new to me, I'm not too sure. Maybe I should drive the Honda a little bit more. I'm going to do a little bit of a buyer's guide, and we'll do a little bit of driving review in that as well. I'm not going to do that this episode, but I will do that for the buyer's guide. But this is the thing, there's nothing wrong with this car to drive. Just in my own mind, for some reason, I do feel that the B-Class drives a little bit nicer. So I suppose the million ones on a question, which car am I like to sell, which car am I like to keep? Well, I'm swaying more towards keeping the B-Class, purely because I've had this car 4 years. It's given me 4 years really good service, and I can't really complain about it. I think it drives really nice. It's nice and easy to drive. It also doesn't cost me that much to actually run this car. It's got fantastic MPG. MPG, I've had it as high as 68 MPG on average. Usually I'll get somewhere between 55 to 65, depending on the type of driving that I'm doing, whether I'm going into town or whether I'm on the motorway or whatever. So I think I'm swaying towards B-Class more. I will admit that the 4x4 aspect of this car would be really useful, and I think that definitely is something I maybe stop and think, actually, we probably could do with a 4x4. However, I have owned the B-Class for 4 years now, and I've thankfully never been in a situation where I've needed to go out in the snow. It's front wheel drive. I've never really struggled. As long as you drive sensibly in the winter, as long as you look at the road ahead and think, there's a massive river flowing through the road there, better not drive for it. I've done that before, where there's little bits of water in the road and you can't really see how deep it is. Best not to risk it. I turn around and I go and find another way to go. So I've never really struggled with the B-Class in the winter. If there's 6 foot of snow out there, I'm probably not likely to make it anywhere in the Honda anyway, so it's fairly pointless, to be honest. So yes, although the 4x4 aspect is kind of appealing with the Honda, I've never struggled with in the 4 years with the B-Class. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'd love to know your opinion. Should I actually keep the CR-V instead of the B-Class? One of these cars does have to be sold. I can't keep both. So one of them will have to be sold, but maybe you can think of a reason that I've not come up with or not thought of in this episode to keep the CR-V over the B-Class. Maybe that might tip the scales a little bit. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. So if you're a regular channel, you'll know that I do a little monthly update video, and that basically features every single car, and I talk about every car regardless of how much they've been on the channel, because sometimes some of my cars don't get featured on the channel for a multitude of different reasons. So I will let you know which one I've kept in my July update. So thank you for watching. I am trying to get towards 1,000 subscribers this year. I have a big goal for 2025. Please do go hit that subscribe button, and also go check out some of my other videos as well. So it's going to be goodbye from me, goodbye from the CR-V and for the B-Class, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.